Welcome everybody to the Digital Nomad Experts Podcast brought to you by Commute. Today I'm really excited. We are joined by a special guest, Will Hatton. Will, how are you? What's going on?
Ahoy, Jeff. Yeah, man, I'm good. It's pretty hot. I'm sweating, but no complaints.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Bali, man. I'm based in Bali like maybe 6 months of the year,
Okay.
and the rest of the time I'm moving around. But I got a few bits and pieces here, and my dogs are here, so Bali's home, you know.
That always roots you a little bit, doesn't it? I've got a dog at home. I'm based out of like the San Francisco area, so I'm there maybe 4 to 6 months a year or so. It just kills me leaving without the dog. I mean, I love this lifestyle, gotta have it, but that dog time is crucial, isn't it?
Dude, it's hard. Like my dogs have actually kind of captured me, and now I've completely changed my life because
For sure.
I can't be quite as free and easy as I used to be, you know. And I've had about 15 dogs here in Bali. I keep finding them in bushes, but right now I have just 6, so it's kind of calm-ish in the house. But yeah, man, got to have those dogs in the bed to cry the nights away. You know?
And you gotta let them in the bed too. I meet some people every now and then. They're like, "Oh, no dogs in the bed." I'm all, hell with that. I want the cuddles, man. I want the snoring. I want all of it. So why don't you just give the audience a brief introduction to yourself, a little bit about your background, who you are, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I started traveling 15 years ago, and a bit more than 10 years ago, I started the Broke Backpacker adventure travel blog, which in 2014, we had 14 users across the whole year. Nice. It was a very exciting time. You flash forwards to now, and we're about 1 million users a month, which is very exciting. It's almost all through SEO. On my journey, I started out as a broke backpacker, living in India for a couple of years with like no money, traveling on $10 a day, sleeping in train stations, hitchhiking, buying colourful shirts and shiny trinkets and taking them back to the UK and selling them on the side of the road to get money together for the next trip. And that was kind of my thing. I always had kind of like an entrepreneurial bent. I would normally just buy stuff through the places I was traveling through and bring it back in my backpack and sell it. So I did like leather satchels and colourful hippie shirts and all sorts. Slowly but surely, my blog took off, and off the back of that, I've had about a dozen other online ventures. It was safe to say that we were doing really well in most of these and okay in a couple of others. Oh, and there was one which was always a failure. And then COVID came along and just like crushed the travel industry, and pretty much everything I was doing was in the travel industry. So it's been a bit of a long road to get back to where we're at now. In Bali, I opened a very special hostel for very special people, such as aspiring entrepreneurs, digital nomads, remote workers, and it's Indonesia's first co-working hostel. It's a little bit different to a lot of the other offerings on the island, and that was always a dream of mine. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey, man. It's been 15 years, and it's been. I was actually reflecting on it the other day. All of the things that I have seen and done, and all of the businesses that I've built and lost, and a lot of them didn't work out, and there was definitely some lessons along the way.
So you didn't. This podcast is for people that are becoming digital nomads. You didn't take that normal path. You were backpacking around at, I think, 19. You said, right? In one of your articles, I think you started at 19, and that was in India, right? Okay, so walk me through like the process you got to where you said, fuck it, I'm going to India and I'm going to do it with no money. How do you even get to that place?
Yeah, so the long story short is that I was supposed to join the army, and then I had an injury that meant I spent like 6 months laid up in a wheelchair and on crutches, put on a load of weight, got very depressed, got very anxious. My career path of joining the army was no longer an option. I knew that I could get a visa for India for 2 years, so I knew I could stay in India for 2 years, which with my very limited budget was very appealing. So I got that 2-year visa. I headed out there. I think I had about £3,000-ish, and I just worked, hitched, and slept my way across India, relying on like couch surfing, Sikh temples, people I'd meet along the way. At the time, being a digital nomad totally was a thing, but it wasn't very visible, and I didn't know about it. I didn't really know about travel blogging or anything. So yeah, my route was really that I just loved the experience I was having. I loved the opportunity for personal development, to gain some skills, to become less shy, less anxious. And I was like, shit, man, I've got to figure out a way to do this forever. So I was just picking up all these random things I could find in India and taking it back to the UK to sell, basically.
So you kind of went on this travel experience and you just discovered in yourself, this is not going to be a part-time thing. This is something that I have to do forever. And so you started working through your different options on how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I knew at the time that it was going to be something I would do forever, but I did know that I wasn't super excited about any traditional career paths that were open to me once I could no longer join the army. I wanted to do something that would really help me step out of my comfort zone and learn some new skills. And I always knew that eventually I wanted to open a hostel. That was always kind of the goal. So that's what I was working towards.
The typical digital nomad path is not particular. It's not really that. Like, it's usually somebody starts working for an organization and then they start dipping their toes in the water and then eventually they go off fully on their own. And you took a completely different path. So what would you recommend to, like, you did this a long time ago. What would you recommend to somebody now in 2023 who just wants to jump straight into it and start making money and supporting this type of lifestyle that we're having?
I think there's like a really important question here, which is like, what's important to you? Like having enough financial freedom to be able to live and work wherever you want, or crafting a job around your passion, because they're not always the same thing. I mean, maybe you can find a way to combine the two, and if you can, that's awesome. But it might be the case that you're not super passionate about figuring out drop shipping of hammocks from China, but that's what pays your way. Sure. And enables you to have this incredible lifestyle. I think that the most widely published, the most visible version of a digital nomad is the travel blogger. But because, travel bloggers blow up on Instagram all the time, right? But actually making money out of travel blogging, building a successful travel blog and not getting sucked into the social media loop where you're putting in a lot of hours, but really not generating any income. Like it's a really hard line to get right. So I always say to people that, like, in my opinion, the freedom to have like your own location independence is more important than maybe the vibey lifestyle of working on a laptop on a beach, which, it doesn't exist. No one does that. If you take your laptop to the beach, you get sand in your laptop. Everybody knows that.
We were just talking about that last episode. It's like these misconceptions people have about what a digital nomad is. They've got it in their mind that they're going to be some Instagram influencer promoting different like vodka bottles, and they're going to be working from the beach. And I've yet to meet an Instagram influencer while being a digital nomad, and I've yet to see anybody successfully work from a beach more than 5 minutes because it's blazing hot. The computer hates it. You get sand all over your laptop. It's just not a thing. I love that you're killing that misconception. It's so true.
Yeah, it's far from ideal.
So let's go back again. You were in India. Is this at the time when you took the psychedelic rickshaw race across the country?
That was a later project. So when I think it was about 2015, I decided that if I was going to make it as a travel blogger, because at that point my travel blog had like maybe 20,000 users a month, then I would make something like $500 to $1,000 a month just from like sponsored placements, basically. But it was super unreliable. I wanted to move more towards affiliate or doing my own projects because, a lot of the opportunities that are available as like a newbie website, it's not the kind of stuff you want to promote. Like a lot of it was gambling links, to be completely honest with you. I didn't really want to write a guest post about casinos in Macau. I've never been to Macau, not a fan of gambling, not really, doesn't really vibe. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I need to do something to generate some attention. So I decided that I was going to travel from England to Papua New Guinea without flying, and that was going to be my shtick. And I, at the time, was pretty active on Snapchat. So I hitchhiked all across Europe, into Georgia, Azerbaijan, into Iran, hitchhiked all around Iran, met this girl in Iran, converted to Islam and married her after like 5 days, hitchhiked all around Iran with her into Pakistan, and Pakistan was to be a very important part of my story, and I'll come back to that later. And then into India, where I met my brother, and we had this psychedelically painted rickshaw, and we were like, this is going to be the most amazing thing ever. in reality, this rickshaw was like 35 years old. It could only be push started. If you like took it to idling, it would immediately cut out, and its maximum speed was like 35 to maybe 37 kilometers an hour. It was also super loud. So I had this idea to like drive it all the way around India over a few months, but after 6 weeks, we were so exhausted that we left it on the side of the road, and I assume it's still there somewhere.
It's become a landmark.
I hope so. I mean, it was a beautiful rickshaw. It was very tastefully designed. But my plan is to eventually go back and pick up that journey again. Yeah. So I traveled from the UK to India without flying, and then because I'd gotten married in Iran, I suddenly had this new responsibility, this new person in my life. I'd never really had a serious relationship, and I now suddenly had one and was trying to support 2 people. So that kind of changed my journey, and I had to kind of knuckle down and figure out, okay, how do I scale this travel blog to a point where it can support 2 people, especially since one of those people is on a very weak passport. So that was an interesting journey for sure.
So during this time period, you talk a lot about extreme budget travel. What exactly is extreme budget travel, and what did you learn about yourself while going through that phase?
Oh, I'm so glad you didn't just ask me what are ways people can save money when traveling, because that's a question I normally get. What I learned about myself is a much more interesting question. So extreme budget travel, I was traveling on a budget of $10 a day, and I would often end up having to spend like $50, $60 over a month on a visa. So it was actually less than $10 a day. What I learned about myself is when you're traveling in that style, you really need to be optimistic, positive, friendly, and kind of find the funny, because a lot of the time you'll be hitchhiking, you'll be standing by the side of the road. If you look miserable, if you don't look interesting and like you're up for a bit of a laugh, no one's going to pick you up. But if you're kind of exuding positive vibes when you can, people are much more hospitable. And I had some amazing experiences of people, picking me up in the rain, taking me to their house, feeding me a meal. I'd get to sleep in a bed for a night. And those kind of experiences were like really restored my faith in humanity. But I think that for budget travel in general, like a positive attitude is super important. And just to remember that the reason that you're out there is because there's all of these opportunities for personal development, to learn skills, to grow as a person. And if you can kind of stay focused on that, you can ignore the fact that a lot of the time you're like cold, maybe anxious, maybe like you haven't slept in a bed for like 3 or 4 days, you're like pretty tired, It's definitely a young man's game though. I have to say, like I'm 34 now, and like I don't really want to sleep on concrete much more, to be honest.
I hear you. I've kind of passed. I'm 38 now. I'm kind of passing the hostel shared room type of thing. But nonetheless, during that period, it feels like there can be moments where you gain this independence, like you gain this kind of self-respect for yourself for being able to handle tough situations. It's like you intentionally put yourself in difficult situations. How would you say that just helped you as a person, knowing that you had the confidence to make it through those tough situations?
Yeah, so I was super shy. I was like really, really shy. I couldn't talk to girls like at all. My voice would do this weird thing where it would get super high and I'd run away.
Like a movie.
It was like something out of a cartoon. Honestly, it was like something out of a cartoon. It was not much fun. I think, also like I still to this day can't tie my shoelaces. I've got 2 left hands. There's like some things about me that are like not firing quite as they should. And I think that being out in these very different cultures, on the road, learning how to fix a motorbike, because if I don't learn how to fix the motorbike, I haven't got a motorbike, and then I can't get from A to B. And learning how to sew up my clothes, because if I don't sew up my clothes, I've got to buy some more clothes and I haven't got any money. Learning how to like approach people and be a little bit cheeky but very friendly, and like approach them in a way where you don't come across as in any way intimidating, so that you can ask them for something. And these were all skills which threw me so far out of my comfort zone, but as I did them more and more, it got easier. And in India, I had a game, and the game was just to chat to one more person than I had chatted to before the other day. And I got up to something in between 50 and 60, and then stopped the game. And it was a good way of me slowly but surely just like laying one footstep after the other to gain confidence, to gain communication skills. And I think that when you are traveling, when you are on the road, it's a little bit like speed dating with friends. So if you meet someone and you present yourself in a certain way, and let's be honest, when you're on the road, when you're young, you're experimenting with different personas. You're deciding what information to put forwards first. You can put something forwards and you can be like, do you know what, that didn't ring too true for me. Actually, that isn't how I want to present myself. And it doesn't matter because you don't see that person again. So you have the opportunity to experiment with how you want to communicate
and find out who you are and kind of learn about how you interact with people best and the types of people that you want to interact with more often. Yeah, you just don't get that when you're at home. You get the same tiny little circle, and you never really grow. You just you learn how to grow within that tiny little fishbowl that you're in, and you don't get that worldview experience. Speaking of which, tell me how LSD with monkeys in India impacted your worldview on life.
LSD in general has had a strong effect on my worldview of life. Definitely, I've had some really interesting trips, a couple of terrible ones, but I've had some really interesting trips where something's just clicked into place for me, and I've gained a better understanding about myself or the world around me. But there's this fortress in India called Bundi. It's in Rajasthan, and it's on top of this hill, and you have to climb up these zigzagging pathway to get up there, and it's abandoned. And there's one way into this fortress, which is kind of a monkey-sized hole in a gate, right? So me and my brother, we're like, let's take some LSD and let's go up to this fortress and let's pretend we're Indiana Jones and let's watch the sunset. So we take some LSD, we go all the way up this path, it takes an hour, we get to the top, we realize we've completely run out of water, so we go back down the path, it takes twice as long, back up the path, go through the monkey-sized hole in the gate, and we're just sitting on the battlements, and it's been a long day of climbing up and down this hill. But it's just fantastic. The sun is setting, there's a lake below us, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a few monkeys coming towards us along the battlements. And what we didn't realize, right, is that during the day, baboons, man, and they can be super big and super aggressive. And during the day, they all go down into the town to raid and look for garbage and stuff, right? But they all sleep in the fort at night. So at sunset, they all come up. So we're sitting up on the battlements, and 10 monkeys turns to 20, turns to 50, turns to about 100 monkeys over about a 10-minute period. And I'm like, dude, we need to get out of here, man. I'm like tripping. I can see faces moving around on these monkeys' faces, and I'm pretty sure I've got some bananas in my bag, but I don't even want to try and get them out in case it sends the monkeys into some kind of frenzy. So anyway, we managed to extradite ourselves from that situation. There was a big monkey in the monkey-shaped hole, which was the only way in or out of the fortress. But we managed to get past it. It was that was a very intense experience for sure. Yeah.
And how does this type of experience using LSD? And by the way, I got to throw my disclaimer out there. Beach Commute does not condone the use of drugs, but we're talking about real life here, so we're going to talk about it. Okay, there we go. Check. How did this experience and similar experiences impact you in terms of mental growth and impact you as a traveler?
So I read the Ken Casey book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, when I was 19. And that's all about the LSD movement in the 70s across America, and how it was tied to hippies and the Hells Angels and all of the earlier kind of commune experiments. And I was very taken by the idea of communes in particular, and by the idea of effectively ceremonies, and that was what LSD was being used for by Ken Casey's group, not so much by the Hells Angels, but by Ken Casey's group. They were using it in a sacred kind of setting, and I felt that growing up I didn't really know what my values were. I'm not religious, and in place I kind of had this big question mark, what is important to me, who am I, what do I stand for, what are my guiding principles. So once I started experimenting with LSD, I started writing my own manifestos and getting clear on who I wanted to be, what was important to me, the kind of people I wanted to be around, what my values were, and what I was aiming towards. And LSD definitely played a really strong part in that. I would often ask myself pre-prepared questions when I was on LSD to see if the answers changed a little bit. Sometimes they were deeper, sometimes it was just illegible squiggles that I couldn't read. It depends if you get the dosage right. But Yeah, I had this obsession with doing LSD in some of the most visually stunning places in the world. So there was a few other places on my travels where I specifically went there to camp there, build a big fire, take LSD, and kind of see what happened.
Yeah, in my experience, again, don't condone this, but in my experience, it's built empathy for other people, and it's just given me a less closed mind when I'm traveling. Like it gives me a more like a clean slate, I guess. And I challenge all my previous conceptions about what life is, and I say, okay, going into a new place could be anything, and it kind of like it took that push over the edge to get me there. Yeah. Good monkey story, like that. Let's change gears here a little bit. So you were doing that, and then you founded the Broke Backpacker. You were living on $10 a day, and then you made millions of dollars. Like we skipped a couple gaps here. What did that process look like? Where you went from just challenging yourself every single day on very little money to making millions of dollars.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience, to be completely honest with you. And I would say that there wasn't like one big thing that achieved it. It was like a lot of little things all coming together over a long period of time working online. Yeah. Certainly blowing up on Snapchat enabled me to launch this expedition company where I was doing tours to Pakistan and Iran and selling it through Snapchat. That gave me the first little bit of money, which enabled me to hire some more writers for the Broke Backpacker, to invest in my SEO, to do some experiments, to play around with some conversion optimization, to build my mailing list. And like, you know, as anyone will tell you, it's hard to make money with no money. And for a long time, I was making no money. Once I started to make a little bit of money, I was able to scale things up fairly rapidly. And over a 2-year period, we went from 20,000 users a month to over 1 million users a month to about 1.5 million users at our peak. I was able to negotiate some very sexy commission structures that I'm not allowed to discuss with various booking platforms. And that just put us in this incredible position, because one of them in particular, it was a sliding scale based on volume. And they obviously never thought that we would do 10,000 conversions a month, because we actually would end up generating more from the sale than they were if we did that. But we did. And after we kind of figured out what style of content made money versus what style of content built an audience, we could get the balance correct. So if I'm writing an inspirational piece or a how to hitchhike or a how to couch surf guide, this is the kind of stuff that's never going to make me any money, but it's what builds brand loyalty. It's the kind of stuff people want to read. It gets people excited. It gets people inspired. And then you can point them towards content like best Airbnbs in New York or where to stay in Delhi. And you can more monetize that content, or like best backpacks for backpacking the world, whatever. You can more monetize that content with affiliates. We then tried to scale up the affiliate side of things by looking at the products that we were selling the most of and doing our own versions of those products. So we did hammocks, we did security belts, we did microfiber towels, a few other bits and pieces. That was going really well, but that was one of the pieces that was just hit the hardest by COVID, because shipping costs from China and Vietnam went up by like 400%. So I had to close that up. I also ended up with this like really massive team working under me, like more than 20 people. And one of the advantages of the Broke Backpacker is that we've never struggled to find great people, because we're very visible. So people come to us and they're like, hey, I'm backpacking. Do you have any work? So we've got a fantastic team, and I was able to before COVID, was able to point that team at other projects. So we started playing around with different affiliate ideas. A lot of it was within travel, but I tried some other bits and pieces as well, some really niche stuff, some of which worked, some of which didn't. And for a little while, if you typed in Coinbase referral code randomly, it was my website, and we did pretty well on it.
So a lot of folks are our audience are working for a company, and they're looking for like an opportunity to either work for another company or convince their boss that they should be able to be a digital nomad. And there's misconceptions about how much money you need. So you've explained, as a backpacker, you're able to survive on very little, but as like a modern, what we'd call a digital nomad, how much money would you say that you need in order to travel? Like what kind of job, what kind of money?
I think it depends on what style of travel you want. So for me personally, I tend to do things in seasons. So I'll settle down and work really hard for 3 months, and then I'll take 6 weeks to another 3-month period pretty much off, where I will go traveling or I'll focus on my fitness for a bit, and I'm only doing like 10 hours work a week. But then I have these very solidified 3-month work periods where I go hard and I'll do like 50, 60, 70 hours a week consistently. And I think it's important to lay it out in that way, and to make sure that when you are laying it out in that way, you're positioning yourself geographically somewhere where the Wi-Fi isn't going to be an issue and the cost of living is relatively cheap. So I think that's an important part. I think that you can do pretty well for like $20,000 a year traveling and working. It depends exactly where you go and how often you fly. From the point of view of like setting up a business and what that costs, I think that's the question that's as old as time, which is like, what parts of it do you do yourself and what parts of it do you outsource? And that really comes down to your skill set. Like a pet peeve of mine is people talking about outsourcing SEO, because you can't outsource SEO by its very nature, right? You can get someone to help you with some elements of SEO, but if you think that you can get away without knowing anything about SEO whatsoever, it just isn't possible. So I think it's important to make the definition between when you need to learn a skill versus when you don't. If you need to have a website for your business, but that's the only website you're ever going to build, you probably don't need to teach yourself web design. And I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good answer. Actually, my background is SEO. I've been doing SEO for about 12 years or so. And I try to explain to people, I've built an SEO course even because I try to explain to people, you need to learn this. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to learn it. If you're going to work on an internal marketing team, like you need to learn this stuff and stop outsourcing it everywhere, because that just turns into an absolute mess. It's SEO experts and consultants out there, agencies, like you're going to get ripped off. This is one of those skills that you need to get honed in on.
It is. And another thing that I found is that a lot of the time, the best SEOs with the freshest knowledge and the most interesting tactics, you can't hire them. They're not available. They're working on their own projects. Yeah. So like if you hire an agency, you're going to pay top dollar for a cookie cutter approach, and it usually is not a good use of money.
Let's fast forward now to this hostel, the co-working hostel that you've created. Tell me about that. I can see you're excited about it. I've seen you posted quite a bit about it on the website. What's so unique about it? What makes it exciting?
So the hostel is called Tribal, and it's in Bali, and we started building it pretty much right at the beginning of the pandemic. It took 3 years to build, and what's exciting about this hostel is that we built it from scratch. It was just a rice field. So we designed what we think is the perfect hostel for folks who still want to have the option to plug into the backpacker vibe, backpacker events, backpacker community, but who need to work. What we were finding was there was a lot of people, either remote workers or people who actually have more traditional jobs in an office, and they want to experience the backpacker lifestyle, but they don't want to deal with dirty bathrooms, and they don't want it to be the case that the only place in the hostel where they can take a call is like the middle of a packed community area. So we built a big hostel that has bar, restaurant, cafe, a big pool, a pool table, all of the games. And then over here, it's got like a dedicated co-working area, plentiful outlets, standing desk, co-working booths. We've got AC meeting rooms on the way. And it's a bit more of a boutique experience. It isn't the cheapest hostel around by far, but it gives you the option to work, live, play, and really marry the best of building your online business or working on your online job whilst also having access to the fun side of backpacking. And there's nothing else really like it in Indonesia at the moment. There are some great co-working spots, but you don't have the option to live there, and it's harder to meet people, it's harder to make those organic connections. And what's really interesting is you see and you hear people from different disciplines coming together on our big community tables, sharing ideas, sharing skills. And as you probably know, when you're working as an entrepreneur, especially in the early stages, it can be very lonely. So to bring together like a space where people have access to finding their tribe, it's been a really meaningful, rewarding experience for us. I've enjoyed it so far.
I've just been saying that till I'm blue in the face. Like, traveling is great, but when you're traveling alone, it can be extremely lonely because you've got all these amazing experiences that you could be looking at some beautiful sunset and like you've got nobody to share it with. Like, all these things that we do, it matters when you share it with people. And in the work environment, the shared collaboration is just fuel. It is amazing. Like, when you're working with somebody that's like has a different background than you. Say I'm doing SEO and then you've got somebody else who does design and they say, hey, I got an idea for your website. Check this out. And they start scratching stuff together. You just get inspired in ways that you just can't do on your own. You can't do it in an office environment because you're just not exposed to this wide range of people. So it's really cool to hear that you've got this, you're building this community. It's not just a co-working space where I'm in a co-working space now, and it's not community. It's you come here because you got good Wi-Fi, but you've actually got the combination of both, where you're integrating like an actual good working space in Bali that has good internet, I'm assuming, in Bali, and actually exposure to other people that could potentially be in your tribe.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's been an awesome experience, and we kind of had to bootstrap this one, especially since the income that I was making during COVID fell by 90%. Oof. So we were really hit hard there, and had to bootstrap it. So it's not quite finished. We've got a plot of land next to it where we're planning on putting amphitheater style seating, cool. And then we can have a cinema area in there and get speakers in and do more entrepreneurship style events. So I'm really excited about that. We're also looking at doing another one in a kind of secret location at the moment.
Okay.
The plan is to expand this out over the next few years because I think there's a lot of space for this. I think people are looking for this.
Yeah, definitely.
Happy to provide.
I'm on my way to one similar. Well, I don't know if it's similar, but it's the similar concept in Serbia in a couple days. It's got a.
What's it called?
It's called Mokrin House or Mokrin House. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's literally a village. And my friend sent it to me. And I looked at what they had: big co-working space, big community spaces, like nice, brand new designed architecture. Housing's really good. I thought, man, 3 weeks of that, because I do similar to you. I go through these phases of, I'm going to hammer down, I'm going to work 10, 12 hours a day. And then I'll go through phases where it's just fuck it. I'm going to go pretty lax. I'm just going to enjoy life a little bit. And this is a really good opportunity to just focus in and get some work done. So this really timely concept for me. And I'm eager to share with you the experience. Okay, so let me shift gears. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about. What would you say for digital nomads that are upcoming? What kind of advice would you give them if they still haven't taken the plunge? Like they've got this dream lifestyle. They've heard about the things that you've been doing and saying, oh man, I want to go race a rickshaw, or I just want to maybe a more relaxed environment. I want to go to Medellin for a little while and chill back, but I just don't have the nerve to do it yet. What kind of advice would you give to that person to get them to just take the plunge?
I think that definitely finding a place where you're able to meet like-minded entrepreneurs is key. I think choosing somewhere to go and base yourself and to do things in sections. Let's say you go to Medellin for 3 months. Maybe you take the first 10 days to just enjoy Medellin, but after that, you have to buckle down and you have to have a plan. And if you don't buckle down, if you don't have a plan, you will burn out. You will run out of money. You will go home because you haven't put in the kind of work that needs to happen. I don't mean to put anybody off. I just think it's incredibly important to understand that the rewards from this lifestyle are massive. Yeah. But to get to this lifestyle, it is a serious amount of work, and the work that you put in at the beginning is massively compounded. So you want to make sure that you put in a good amount of hours, but also that you have a plan and you're not redesigning your logo for the 20th time or wasting all of your time on your social media and it's not driving any actual traffic. It's just important to have a strategy. I think though, when it comes down to getting out of your comfort zone, I think take any step. If you've never traveled outside of London before, go to Brighton, go to the coast for the day. Take any step that you are a little bit uncomfortable with to gradually, slowly move your comfort zone outwards so that you can get towards where you want to be. And I do think that there is strength in numbers again. So you will find it easier to step out of your comfort zone if you select somewhere where you're going to be able to meet other entrepreneurs. I would say that going to an SEO conference, there was one in Birmingham recently run by a friend of mine, there's one in Chiang Mai in October or November, or going to well, it depends what niche you're interested in, but going to conferences and just talking to people in the hallways is great. There's often events on Meetup, there's communities on Facebook. Go and find some people who have things to teach you or who are on a similar journey to you, and do enough research so that you're not asking totally basic questions and you can actually take part in the conversation. And I think that is a really great way to find your first steps and move forwards. And it can be intimidating, it can be hard work, but the rewards are massive. It's definitely worth taking the plunge.
I agree with you. And to make this super practical, do you have a few places in mind that you would suggest to somebody to start out?
If you're a delinquent, I probably wouldn't go to Medellin, because Medellin cost me 3 months of my life that probably aged me by 10 years, and I can never get that back. Thailand's great. Thailand's a really good place to start. There's a good SEO community up in Chiang Mai. There's a good fitness community down in Phuket. Thailand is relatively cheap. The visa policies are pretty friendly. The food is good. The people are nice. It's a safe place to go. So Thailand's probably my number one recommendation. Bali is fantastic. It is a little bit more on the pricey side, but it is a fantastic place to get started. The problem with Bali is you have a large influencer crowd kind of messing with the entrepreneurship vibe here a little bit. For every entrepreneur, there's 10 influencers, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I just think it's very important that when you are considering your path as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily go for the most visible thing, which is to be an influencer, because it's so hard to be a successful influencer, and you could spend 3, 4, 5 years of your life on it only to not get anywhere and to not realize until it's taken 3, 4, 5 years. Whereas if you're working on a site with SEO and affiliate marketing, you're going to know if it's working after a year. You'll have an idea if it's working, or if you need to switch things up, or if you need to try a different space. So it's a lot more tangible. Have a good spots. Well, I mean, Mexico, obviously, Tulum is possible, is popular. Eastern Europe is a good bet though, because it's cheap, like Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, places like that have an up-and-coming digital nomad population. And then the other one is Madeira, off the coast of Portugal. Madeira's really up-and-coming as a DN hub at the moment. But I think, crucially, you want to try and find a hub. You want to try and find a place where you can meet people. If you're doing it as cheap as possible, Thailand. Thailand, for sure.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation. Thanks so much for joining me. Where do you want to send the audience? Do you want to send them to a link for the hostel or Broke Backpacker, or what do you want to do?
You can find me on Instagram at Will Hatton __. You've got Tribal on Instagram at Tribal Bali, and the website is thebrokebackpacker.com. You can always drop me a DM on Instagram, and I will respond after some weeks.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate you joining us.
Cool. Thank you, buddy. Thanks again, man. That was fun.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again next week.